What's good, y'all? Welcome to my review of Tenet. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have finally watched Tenet. Fortunately, it wasn't in IMAX, but hey, whatever. But anyway, of course, I got Quantum Break footage playing because the game's similar enough to Tenet, so I was like, fuck it. I'll have gameplay of this. Of course, I'll leave links to the video footage I stole down in the description box below. Anyway, but holy fuck, man, Tenet was quite the experience, man. Now, I wouldn't go as far as say, like, oh yes, this is my all-time favorite Christopher Nolan film. It ain't that good, but my god, this movie's a fucking masterpiece. I fucking love this film, and I was enthralled from start to finish. Anyway, man, let's just jump right in on Tenet. So the movie is directed by, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT, Christopher Nolan. And stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, Kenneth Branagh, and of course the plot of Tenet, going off the IMDb page, because that's all I can go off without spoiling anything. Armed with one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist's journey through the twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. And man, is that true? Because man, this movie is all about time. Going forward in time, backwards, sideways, left, right, forward, backwards, all in one, you know? Time is this movie's fetish. Anyway, so this obviously this review will be completely spoiler free, so this review might end up being pretty short, or it could end up being it could be a normal size review, depending on how much I talk, because I want to not spoil anything. But anyway, first off, the cast was phenomenal still. John David Washington was great as the protagonist. Yes, that's legit. His name is the protagonist. Oh, Christopher Nolan. Robert Pattinson was great. It's crazy to think that this is pretty much Robert Pattinson's this is pretty much his, like, the only real mainstream Hollywood he's done since the Twilight films. It's crazy how, like, you know, in like less than 10 years, you know, he went from Twilight to this. And now he's fucking Batman, and he proved us all wrong. How great of an actor he really is from this film, and of course some of his other films he's done on the indies, like, you know, The Lighthouse, which you guys know I watched that film last year and absolutely loved it. Weird as shit around the last half, but a great film nonetheless. And with this one as well, this movie is first, like I said, I already mentioned the cast was great. We'll talk more about like what I thought of the plot and everything a little bit later, but and also the set pieces once we get to like the visuals. This movie is visually stunning, from, you know, of course the cinematography, which is fantastic, to, you know, the action scenes, which are also phenomenal. Like, I would argue that they're almost on par with the John Wick films. Especially there was this one in like the kitchen area where the protagonist legit uses a fucking cheese grater. It's fucking awesome, man. And then we get to like the third half, and, you know, shit gets crazy. You got people moving forwards and backwards through time at the same time. It's a thing to behold, man. Like, once we start getting into like the later half and we start seeing people moving backwards and forwards through time all at once, it's quite the spectacle to see, man. It was a joy to watch and see start to finish, man. But another thing that was also great was the music. Now, the movie wasn't composed by Hans Zimmer, which you guys know, so that he typically does a lot of Christopher Nolan's films, because he did the soundtrack for Dune instead. I believe because he was a big fan of the novel and he wanted to do Dune, so he wasn't able to do the soundtrack for this film. However, they did get the guy that composed the soundtrack for Black Panther. And honestly, first off, I will say the music was fantastic. But if you told me this was Hans Zimmer did the music again, I would have believed you, because it sounds very indicative of what his music typically sounds like from, you know, his films that he's done along with Christopher Nolan's past ones that he's worked with in like the Dark Knight trilogy and everything. But yeah, man. So the music was fantastic man. You guys are going to be hearing some of the sounds, probably just the Travis Scott song plays at the end credits. I might throw in some of the actual soundtrack in there as well if I remember. But yeah, man. So the music was fantastic, and now the cast was great, the action was great. Now let's get to like something more about the plot, because this is definitely a film that requires your undivided time. Because this movie is not a movie that holds. It's a lot like Inception, Although I think Inception was probably a little bit easier to understand. This film kind of just goes from 0 to 100 real quick, and you're just kind of, and it doesn't slow down really until like maybe around the second half when it starts to like explain certain things a little bit more, and you're kind of getting a better understanding of what the movie is actually doing, what the actual plot of the film is. But for the first half, I think Chris Stuckman said it best, where it's very inaccessible throughout the first half. You're kind of left to your own devices, and Christopher Nolan just kind of leaves you wondering, while maybe giving you a little bit of breadcrumbs here and there, but a lot of the time you're just mostly catching up, and you're just kind of like, and now I was able to this is definitely a film that requires multiple viewings, which I hope I do see. I want to see this movie again someday. Probably not anytime recently until I get the Blu-ray, actually, because my mom managed to rent it for me from Redbox, so I was finally able to see it. But this is definitely a film that will require multiple viewings, because for right now, I could say that I liked Tenet and I love Tenet, but my love of it is probably pretty surface level until I start watching it over and over again. Then I'll be like, and start to deconstruct and see what Christopher Nolan was actually going for. I'll probably appreciate this movie more as time goes on and the more times I rewatch. This is definitely a film you have to rewatch multiple times. But I will say I absolutely adore the screenplay film. I love the dialogue in this film because it is very snappy and to the point. They don't really take the time to smell the roses, so to speak. It's just kind of like it's going for bam, 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 bam. Like it's just going one after the other. Like one character talks from the other, then they just keep going over and over, going over. And this, like I said before, this is a movie you have to pay attention, because otherwise, if you're not, you will get lost. Because now, of course, someone like me that is a connoisseur of film and appreciator of film, and of course, an aspiring director, Christopher Nolan has my attention front and center from the very beginning. Because you guys know this was #1 on my top 10 most anticipated films list of this year. I don't even know if I'm even going to do a top 10 movies of 2020 this year because of how little films actually came out this year, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, man, so even though the story is very convoluted, I would say, and definitely requires multiple viewings, I still adore the screenplay, and I loved how snappy the dialogue was. Even though, like I said, you have to make sure you are paying attention. Don't be like my dad, who was sleeping through half of it, who was going out and in and out of sleep. Now, granted, to be fair, he came back from Africa, so he said, like, I haven't gotten used to the time zone, but still, fucking disgraceful. Fuck my father. He does not appreciate good films. Anyway, enough of me dissing my dad. Anyway, man, so the music was great, the screenplay was phenomenal, the action set pieces were fantastic, and the story I ended up really enjoying, man. Once you finally start to understand what Christopher Nolan was trying to say with this film. Now, as far as negatives I have with the film, first off, the sound mixing was kind of off. Like there were times where I had to re-record, like had to rewind, like on my PS4 to see what characters said. And something I just had to put on the subtitles. I ended up leaving the subtitles on for most of the film just to make sure I know, just so I didn't have to go back and rewind it all, so I could just look at there and know what they're saying. Because apparently it's been like the thing with Christopher Nolan films recently, where the sound mixing isn't the greatest. Like apparently this was The Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, Dunkirk didn't really have a problem because nobody was really talking in Dunkirk, but. Yeah, sound mixing was kind of off, but nothing too out of the ordinary from what you usually expect. The aspect ratio thing was also kind of jarring at points. No, I wouldn't say it's as jarring as something like Dark Knight Rises, where it's like 60:9 60 by 9 IMAX, 60 by 9 IMAX. Like the aspect ratio seemed like it was a little bit there, because I know he also did this with Dunkirk as well, where they expanded the aspect ratio a little bit more for the scenes that were not filmed with IMAX to make it not as jarring when it goes switch to IMAX. But I gotta ask, why wasn't this whole film just shot in IMAX? Like before with The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, those types of film back in earlier on, it made sense for them not to be shot completely on IMAX because of the limitations of the hardware and the cameras weren't as readily available, I think. Back then, because I think there was like only 2 IMAX cameras that were actually available when The Dark Knight was filming, and they blew one of them up during that one scene with the truck around the midpoint of the film when the tumbler got destroyed. So that makes sense for those films. But after Endgame and Infinity War were both completely shot on IMAX, I don't know why Christopher Nolan didn't just do the same thing. Because I feel like it'd just be easier that way. I mean, I doubt it's a budget thing, because I'm pretty sure Warner Bros. Just throws this man whatever money he wants, because he's proven his worth with the Dark Knight trilogy, and his movies make millions, So I don't know if it was just something he didn't want to shoot the whole film in IMAX, or it could have been something else. I don't know, because after Infinity War and Endgame was shot on IMAX, I don't know why, were shot entirely on IMAX, excuse me, I don't know why this film wasn't. They still went from like IMAX cameras to normal cameras, or maybe just wanted to save the IMAX cameras for the actual big set pieces. That could also be a thing, and you know what, fair enough, because when you do switch the IMAX cameras, oh my god, it's absolutely fucking beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. And the one other thing that you could see as a flaw is the characters. Because it's kind of like Dunkirk, where the characters are more, not so much as like people, but rather objects to advance the plot. Like the main character, the protagonist, we know really next to nothing about him. Really, the only character we get to know at all is Kat, played by Elizabeth Debicki, if I'm saying it right. She was really, because there's a subplot focusing around her in the later half, with her and the main villain in the story and everything. And she's the only one we really get to know really anything about of her, and maybe also Robert Pattinson's character as well around the end of the film. But besides those two, the rest of the characters are just kind of there just to advance the plot and be objects for the plot to advance, But then again, it was the same thing with Dunkirk, but nobody was going to Dunkirk for the characters. You were going there for the experience. The same thing is with Tenet. You are not coming here for the characters. You are coming here for the experience, to be awed, to be left in awe by what Christopher Nolan has in store for you. That's basically why you're going to see this film. You're not here for the characters. So with all that being said, man, this is an absolute masterpiece of a film. And if you're going to ask me, Glenn, which one did I like more between this and Inception, I would say that I actually did enjoy Tenet a bit more, mostly due to the action set piece. Inception was also fantastic in its own right, but I definitely prefer Tenet, myself anyway. I prefer Tenet, that's just me. Yeah, man, so overall, I give Tenet a 10 out of fucking 10. And so yeah, man, that is where I'm going to end off this review. Tell me down below in the comments what you guys thought of Tenet, if you saw it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What are your thoughts and opinions on? Do you have any theories? Do you think that this movie is connected to Inception at all? Leave that all down below in the comments. Anyway, guys, hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you like, if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you like. Links down in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.